So glad you are joining us today. We're welcoming you to worship here at the Trevecca Urban Farm, and each day we come at 7 o'clock and get to be among God's creatures, celebrating God's goodness as expressed through this beautiful creation that God has made. We hope that your time this morning is filled with grace, that you hear words that are an encouragement to you, words that challenge you, and you just are reminded that God loves everything that God has made and welcomes us into the fullness of health. So we just invite you this morning to join us in worship.
Well, as you can see, we are in the barn today, and we are glad to be with you to worship. We're going to be focusing on how God is creator, and we are so thankful to be able to worship with you. Will you sing with us this morning?
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born, and the vapor of your breath the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, you sit upon empty your voice. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. Oh, and as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch the breath, evolving in pursuit of what you say. If it all reveals in nature, so will I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a signal fire of grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If
oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, and I see the stars, and I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe display. Oh, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Went through the woods and forest glades I wander, and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees. When I look down from lofty mountain grandeur, and hear the brook, and feel the gentle breeze, oh, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou
If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I.
I don't know if you can hear it, but the birds are singing so well right now. It's a beautiful sound. Listen to the words of Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters. Will you sing this with us? This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is speaks to me every way. This is my Father's world, and don't let me never forget that though the wrong seems off so strong, God is the ruler, yeah. Oh, this is my Father's world. Why should my heart be sad? The Lord is King. Let the heavens ring. God reigns. Let the earth be glad. Oh, this is my Father's world. Why should my heart be sad? The Lord is King. Let the heavens ring. God reigns. Let the earth be glad. The Lord is King. Let the heavens ring. God reigns. Let the earth be glad.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters.
And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day.
And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it, and it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day.
And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let the dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and gathered the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good.
Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it, according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day.
And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as a sign to mark sacred times and days and years. And let them be lights in the vaults of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made stars.
God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day.
And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good.
God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the water in the seas and the birds, and let the birds increase the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so.
God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, over the livestock and the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground."
So God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground."
Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground and everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good.
Hi everyone, I'm Caleb, and I'm here today to introduce our speaker for today's chapel. His name is Caleb Haynes. He's my pastor. He's one of the co-pastors at Kaleo Church of the Nazarene. He is one of the co-founders of the Nazarenes for Creation Care movement. His highest accomplishments is being a husband, being the father of 2, being the pastor of more than 10, and being a friend to so many more, including myself. Yeah, I hope that you listen to him, and I know that he has so much that's good to say, and that's so faithful. Thank you, Caleb, for speaking today in chapel.
Right on. So today we are in the Old Testament. We are in Leviticus 19, and we have just some great, awesome, and lengthy ground to cover. And so I want to begin by reading Leviticus 19. Though lengthy and 37 verses long, we're going to do this thing. So if you have your Bibles, read along with me. Starting at verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to all the congregation of the people of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. You shall each revere your mother and father, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn to idols or make cast images for yourself. I am the Lord your God. When you offer a sacrifice of well-being to the Lord, offer it in such a way that it is acceptable in your behalf. It shall be eaten on the same day you offer it, or on the next day, or anything left over until the third day shall be consumed in fire. If it is eaten at all on the third day, it is an abomination. It will not be acceptable. All who eat it shall be subject to punishment because they have profaned what is holy to the Lord, and any such person shall be cut off from the people." This is like the original quarantine, right? Verse 9, "When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not strip your vineyard bare or gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord, your God. You shall not steal. You shall not deal falsely. You shall not lie to one another." It's kind of a little bit 10 Commandments here going on. "You shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not defraud your neighbor. You shall not steal. You shall not keep yourself the wages of a laborer until morning. You shall not revile the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind. You shall not fear. You shall fear your God. I am the Lord. You shall not render unjust judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great. With justice you shall judge your neighbor. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not profit by the blood of your neighbor. I am the Lord." It keeps going. "You shall not hate in your heart anyone of your kin. You shall reprove your neighbor, or you will incur guilt yourself. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against any of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." It's a familiar one. Verse 19, you shall keep my statutes. You shall not let your animals breed with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor shall you put on a garment made of two different kinds of materials, right? Polyester, there would have been a problem. Verse 20, if a man has sexual relations with a woman who is a slave designated for another man, but not ransomed or given her freedom, an inquiry shall be held. They shall not be put to death, since she has not been freed. But he shall bring a guilt offering for himself to the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting, a ram as guilt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of guilt offering before the Lord for his sin that he committed, and the sin he committed shall be forgiven him. When you come into the land, now we're like, turn the page. When you come into the land and plant all kinds of trees for food, then you shall regard their fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden for you. It must not be eaten. If you're tracking, you'll see that we've gone from vengeance against your neighbor to what kind of clothes you're wearing, to what kind of sex you're having, to what kind of trees you're eating. So kind of all over the place. In the 4th year, all their fruit shall be set apart for rejoicing in the Lord. But in the 5th year, you may eat of their fruit, that their yield may be increased for you. I am the Lord, your God. We're almost there. You shall not eat anything with its blood. You shall not practice augury or witchcraft. You shall not round off the temples of your hair or mar the edges of your beard, right? It's kind of like anti-hipster, I don't know. You shall not make any gashes in your flesh for the dead or tattoo any marks upon you. I am the Lord. Do not profane your daughter by making her a prostitute, that the land not become prostituted and full of depravity. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Do not turn to mediums or wizards. Do not seek them out to be defiled by them. I am the Lord, your God. You shall rise before the age and defer to the old, and you shall fear your God. I am the Lord. And when an alien resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress the alien. The alien who resides with you shall be to you as a citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself. By the way, this is not like aliens, right? This is like refugees, strangers. For you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord, your God. And lastly, you shall not cheat in measuring length, weight, or quantity. You shall have honest balances, honest weights, an honest ephah, an honest hin. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall keep all my statutes and my ordinances and observe them. I am the Lord. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God, right? Whew, golly. Man, I could just sit down right now, I think. My 20 minutes is up, I'm pretty sure. When I was invited to speak in chapel, I thought to myself, I know what college students want to hear about. They want to talk about Leviticus. That's what we want to talk about, right? Doesn't get any better than Leviticus, right? If you've ever tried reading the Bible through, you're like, oh yeah, Genesis, this is all right. Creation, floods, towers, Babels, all sorts of things. And you're like, okay. Then you get to Exodus. You're like, well, pharaohs, kings, power, Caesar parting, fire. There's stuff happening. And then you get to Leviticus, and it's a little bit like, all right. You're wading through, and Leviticus. This sermon, this message, this time, and especially the second half of Leviticus, this is about holiness. And I want to take a step back really quick because if you're anything like me, when someone says they're going to speak on holiness, man, I'm kind of already checking out. I'm kind of already like, okay, I think I've heard that sermon, right? If you're like me, you're kind of like, I think I've already sang that song. You know that song, right? But I would like to pose a new question this morning to us. Have you bought the t-shirt? Have you bought the t-shirt? So, fortunate for you, I'm going to throw up an 800 number later on and you guys can buy one of these puppies because the holy t-shirt, right? And you may be asking yourself, it's a very good question, like, where do I get the holy t-shirt? Like, how can I acquire one of these, and who makes it? And what does this have to do with anything, right? These are all great questions. And what if I told you this morning that holiness has to do with everything from the clothes that you wear on your back to the shoes on your feet? That holiness has something to say about these things, right? And I'm not talking about whether your midriff is showing or whether you're wearing hats in the sanctuary, right? I'm talking about the soil. I'm talking about the other things going on. I'm talking about the thing behind the thing. What if holiness has something to say about the soil that grew the cotton that made this shirt, right? Holiness wants to know about the biodiversity, if the land was stewarded, if it was cared for. Holiness wants to know about the farmers. Holiness wants to see their faces. Holiness wants to touch their hands. Holiness wants to know if they're eating well. Holiness wants to know how the workers who sewed this holy t-shirt together, they want to know how they're doing. They want to know if they were paid well. They want to know about their wages. Holiness wants to know about the working conditions. Holiness wants to know about the ethics and the value and the heart and the spirit of it all, right? Holiness wants to know about the footprint. Holiness wants to know about what's behind, what's in front of, what's beneath, and what's on top, right? Because holiness considers how this t-shirt right here affects the entire planet, right? Because holiness is about wholeness. It's about the whole thing, right? It's like if you've ever watched the show The Good Place. And my wife and I finally finished the show. I think you can see the whole thing on Netflix as of this moment, I think. But we finally finished that show, and if you're familiar with it, right, they deal with the problems of heaven and hell and the point system, and they talk about how the earth is just so messy, right? And they use the analogy of a tomato, because you can't just buy a tomato, because if you buy a tomato, all these other decisions are being made about farmers and travel and carbon dioxide and all this other stuff, right? And they call it messy. But I would actually like to pose today that maybe messy isn't the best word. Maybe beautiful. Maybe interconnected. Right? Because when we look at these laws and rules we find in places like Leviticus, right? Maybe the temptation is to think that it's like a point system. It's like God's crazy point system for us, and He's keeping score about how well we're doing here with all of these laws and all of these rules, right? Rather than what they're about is what happens when good people, right, live in harmony with each other and the earth. And so we look at Leviticus 19 and we understand a little bit more why it seems to talk about everything under the sun, right? Like right here in this passage, like how we breed our animals and sow our seeds, and when we eat from our fruit trees, and how we rock our sideburns and use our bodies, and how we eat and how we welcome the refugee, right? Because these aren't arbitrary rules or laws, right, that God put here to torture us as we try to muster up enough energy to jump through God's ridiculous, nonsensical religious hoops, right? That's not what this is, right? Leviticus isn't God messing with us, but these are words about issues of justice. These are words about issues of love. And so, I believe there's a lot of people today who are stepping away from communities of faith because the only image of God they've been given is one who is about the point system. A God who is kind of a jabroni-like God, uninvolved with life, right? But I would like to venture to say that our God is nothing like that. So let's look at this verse verse 1, verse 2. We're not going to walk through all these verses, but these first two are kind of important. Let's jump to verse 2. It says, "Speak to all the congregations of the people of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." Right? This is where it all starts, that you and I would grow and mature and become and evolve into holy people, because our God, the God we're created in the image of, is holy. And so for clarity on terms, right, we're not going to spend a long time here, but to be holy is to be set apart for God, right? Some would say, my Nazarene theologian friend, Timothy Crutcher, he said, it is not our understanding of holy that helps us to describe God. It is our understanding of God that fills out what we mean when we call something holy. Come on, right? This is so good. So actually this phrase that's tagged on to the end of each segment and driven home like 26 times just in this one chapter of the Bible. We read one chapter, right? This phrase over and over again, I am the Lord, right? You heard it over and over as I was reading that text. Like, you shall revere your father and mother. You shall keep my Sabbaths, right? I am the Lord your God. Don't strip your vineyard bare. Leave some for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God, right? Don't steal. Don't deal falsely, right? I am the Lord your God, right? This is who we are reflecting, right? This is a callback, right, to Exodus chapter 3, because for the people of God, everything is a callback to Exodus. Am I right? And so to when Moses learns about who God's name is and who God is, right? Capital L-O-R-D all over our New Testament, right? You know, it stands for Yahweh. The God who says, I will be whoever I will be. I am whoever I am. I am, right? First person, present, I am, right? God, we learn, is the very essence of presence. That God is ultimate, true, real, living, loving, ultimate presence. In fact, this whole section, which we now look back at the second half of Leviticus, and we call it the holiness code, right? Because that sounds good. That's going to sell some books, right? But it's about, what it's about is what does it look like and what does it mean to live our lives and everything we do in the presence of a holy God, right? We might even say this is the question of the entire Old Testament. What does it mean to live our lives and everything we do in the presence of a holy God? And so this whole thing we call life beckons us to live in such a way that we reflect, mirror, become ourselves like this holy presence in our world. And so Leviticus, hang with me, Leviticus reminds us that God is present in all matters. That God is present in all matters and all matter, right? Because all matter matters. Are you with me? This t-shirt matters. All right? Look at somebody and say, the t-shirt matters. This goes a lot better in person, usually. I'm just going to go out in faith right now. The t-shirt matters.
The t-shirt matters.
Nailed it. Heard it. Amen. From the Lord. So, it matters. I think we spent a little too long in the church thinking silly thoughts like God only cares about our souls. Are you with me? This holiness code, if it does anything, right, it reminds us that God's holy presence has something to say about how we treat our neighbors, the ways we have sex, the words we say, to the ways we are in a relationship with the earth and with the land, right? Because if God is God, right, there is no person, there is no place, there is no thing that God is absent in, that God doesn't have a better word to speak about, where God is not involved. And so Leviticus, giving you a little context, Leviticus is a way that a group of people ancient people thousands of years ago began to actually write words, began to put actual words to what it means that God's justice and God's goodness and God's love is involved in all areas of life, thus showing us how to live, right? These ancient words were the beginning of God putting flesh in the world through God's people, right? Come on. And so the statement, be holy for I am holy, is unpacked by these following verses. And as fun as it would be to walk through all these verses, like I'm pretty sure my time is probably already up, but we're going to keep going. And so it would be some exciting jump rope, but what I would like us to do with the next few minutes is really just focus in on this one thing here that comes up over and over and over again in this text, right? Where it says, do this, live this way, ... I am the Lord, right? It says, do you take a Sabbath? Do you rest? What are your Saturdays like? Right? Make sure you Sabbath, rest, because again, resting is about your healing and the healing of the world. I am the Lord, your God. How well do you eat? You go to the calf? When you go to the calf, is it like all ice cream sandwiches, right? How's your body doing? How are the calf workers doing? Right? When you eat in a way that you won't get sick, eat what is good. Your eating actually is directly connected to the whole world. Your eating is actually directly connected to how you worship, right? I am the Lord, your God. How much money do you have? How much money do you have? Where do you spend it? Who is affected by your resources? Have you loved anyone today with what's in your hands? When you harvest your resources, when you get ready to write the paychecks, do it for the poor and the refugee. Do it with love. Leave some behind for those who actually did nothing to earn it. And for those who did labor with you, make sure you are fair and honest and even timely in their wages. I am the Lord, your God. Love your neighbor as yourself, y'all. Right? This is actually the text this came from. Right in the middle of all this stuff, like Leviticus 19, right there sandwiched in the middle. Love your neighbor as yourself, in case you're wondering where that came from, right? I am the Lord, your God. Then it goes into animals and haircuts and tattoos and all other things, because this was an ancient people in a chaotic time, in a chaotic world, looking to be differentiated, right? To be set apart, to be, right, holy like their God. And so in a time where pagan religions looked one way, it was very important to say, right, and to live in a way that was different, that was aligned with this holy God, right? It was about our health. It was about our wholeness, right? And so we could go on and on, but the point remains here that there is not a single thing, right, that holiness does not touch, right? This is why this chapter's all over the place. That holy living has to do with everything, right? Love in all areas. And so, again, let me break it down for us this morning, or today, or tonight, whenever you're watching this, midnight. Again, God is always calling us to be present. Present. Because each and everything matters. I would venture to say it's about wokeness. That holiness is about wokeness, right? Holy living is about waking up. It's about that I would become like loving awareness. Present. Aware, loving awareness. Emily, my wife, makes fun of me because I say things like awaring is caring. Right? Look at somebody and say, awaring is caring. Right? Are you aware? Are you present? Because that t-shirt you bought, that t-shirt that you are awareing. Are you with me? That t-shirt that you got from H&M, that t-shirt actually changed the world. I mean, in some capacity, in some way, in some form or shape or another, for good or bad, that t-shirt and the decisions you made there, that actually changed the world. Right? It is connected to some farm, some face, some set of hands. Actually, it's connected to a couple tanker ships that went from maybe India to some other country and finally to the United States of America, and then maybe to some landfill, probably to some landfill somewhere, right? Actually, in the United States, or actually in the world, globally, last year in 2019, there was 100 billion articles of clothing manufactured globally. Last year, 100 billion articles of clothing in a year. I mean, if you're keeping track here, there's not even 8 billion people in the world, right? Do the math. You and I, if you live in the United States, you make up about 4% of the global population, right? So that t-shirt, by the way, if a t-shirt cost $5, let me just throw this out there. That t-shirt might be evil. I mean, that sounds really stark, but like someone's not getting paid. Are you with me? And somehow if they are, like, for that kind of production, right, the earth is being pushed and shoved and nudged and forced to produce in a way that is harmful, that is unnatural, right? There's something more going on in that $5 t-shirt. Come on, think about it, right? And so the people of God, in our becoming, in our growing, in our coming into the image of a holy God, must become present with even the t-shirt. The t-shirt is a microcosmic example of the macrocosm, of the whole thing, right? Of all matter today, because all matter matters to God and to God's people. Are you being present today? Contrarily, I believe, for the people of God for some time now, right? I mean, we've been pretty tempted to be the opposite of present, to be absent. Because forcing ourselves to become face-to-face with everything, right, that's kind of hard. That's kind of difficult, right? And that kind of messes with what we think we want, with our freedoms, right? Because when you're young and when you have money, you just want to buy the t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to think about it. I'll be honest. It was a long time before I had any awareness that the decisions I make and what I choose to purchase and what I choose to do with my money matters, right? Because that's the juice we're drinking. That's generally how our society approaches everything, isn't it? That I get to do or buy or engage in what I want, and it doesn't affect you, right? And it has nothing to do with you, right? It's like the whole mask thing. I mean, maybe I step on some toes, but like the whole mask controversy. Like, let me tell you what this is about real quick. It's really simple. This is an easy one, right? This is called loving your neighbor. Boom. Right? It's like my wife always tries to tell me. She tells me a couple times a week, it's not about you, man. Right? It's a good reminder for us all sometimes, isn't it? It's not about you because, it's hard though. Because it's my money, it's my time, it's my energy, and it's none of your business, right? We are trained in individualism early. And what begins to happen over time when we approach all of life this way is our faith actually begins becoming this way. And then all of the sudden, when we talk about our salvation, we talk about it as if it's only personal, as if it's only individual, as if it's only about me. And then after that, it becomes ethereal. It becomes disembodied. It becomes absent, right? I'm wrapping up, so you guys hang with me. I'm like, we're going to land the plane. And so I would like to wrap this up with sharing something that unfortunately no one really told me. early on in my life. And actually, I think is one of the greatest threats to the kingdom of God today and to holistic living. And that is, if you're going to write anything down, here you go. That your presence matters and that your absence is harmful. That your presence matters and that your absence is harmful. I can't tell you how many people over the years since I've been in ministry have believed and come to me and really just struggle with believing that their absence doesn't affect anything. That their absence doesn't matter. This is one of the greatest lies that has ever been told, right? That when you choose to opt out, when you start believing that your absence doesn't matter, that you can just choose not to be present to your church or to your faith community or to your neighborhood or to politics or the issues of life, when you choose not to be present to this t-shirt right here, right? That doesn't affect anything, right? You actually become more than wrong. You can actually become harmful. You are actually, in fact, actively attempting to stall the coming of the kingdom of God, if that's possible, right? Absence. Absence. Trust me, I'm like a major introvert, right? I'm going to leave here, I'm going to go bury my head in the sand for a couple hours. It's going to happen, right? All I really want out of life sometime is like Netflix and pizza, right? Stranger Things 4, like when's that happening? Sign me up for that, you know? But we are created for so much more than that. We are collective, created in the image of the collective. Are you with me? We are collective, created in the image of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We are collective. Salvation is collective, right? The New Testament calls us a body. This is so much more than a pretty metaphor, right? This is literally what it is. It's wholeness. Wholeness. And so presence kind of matters. And so you and me today choosing each and every day to be present, not absent, literally loving, awareing presence with each and every person we encounter, place we go, and thing we do, right? Because as we know, our God says, I am. I am. And so today, to close this out, you can choose to be absent. You can choose to believe those false narratives, that you can opt out of this collective work that we have to do here of living holy lives, but it will have consequences. It will. There's only going this way or going this way. You can engage this morning, or you can engage. You can choose to be present. You can choose to be present. You can dip your hands into the soil of justice, of racial reconciliation, of clean air and fair wages this morning, and fresh water and holistic eating with every choice you make this morning. And so to close today, I would like to suggest, you've heard the sermon, you've sang the songs. May you this morning buy the t-shirt. Go in peace.